You're listening to Perspectives with Sharon Pearson. This episode is part of a mini-series where we'll be unpacking the first few chapters of Sharon's brand new book, Ultimate You. If you like what you hear, make sure you pre-order the book now. You can find a link in the description. Enjoy!
SV,
Yes.
so one of the things that you hear so much these days is this whole idea of loving yourself. You know, you got to take care of you got to make time for you got to love yourself. And a lot of people are having a go at it.
Yeah.
But it's a tough thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So
What's-
self-care isn't self-love.
Yeah. What's your take on that, SB? What does it mean for you to being lovable to yourself?
Well, I'm going to do the question the other way around. So I want to answer your question, but in
Yeah.
reverse. So self-care is, for example, having a bath.
Yes.
Great. That's not self-love.
Yeah.
Because I can
But it's so
remember
surface.
having a bath. It is.
Yeah.
And thinking, do I love myself yet? This isn't working. More bubble bath. Nope, not working. Like really?
Candles.
Huh?
Let's add candles to
Yeah,
it.
candles.
Chocolates, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. And no matter how beautiful the experience looked and seemed to be, if on the inside I didn't know me and find myself lovable, it really didn't matter how good the bath was.
Yeah.
So I tended to avoid them because I knew self-care, and I equated with self-love back then, was having experiences like baths. Insert any version of that.
Yes.
So I avoided them all, Glam, because the thought of doing it just filled me with complete overwhelm and rejection of self. And I meet a lot of women, particularly, like I was running a training, I don't know if you were there, it was like 60 or 70 people in the room, and we're talking about self-care. And I said, so we're gonna have a bath. And like 10 women just went, oh, I could never waste my time with that. I thought, there it is. So not only will they not do self-care, how are they gonna get to self-love? So self-care and self-love, not the same thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we're going to get to self-love through self-care activities if we already don't feel love for ourselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because we're already undermining ourselves anyway. We're not going to feel better just because we do things that are meant to mean love, and we don't feel love. We're going to feel twice as bad.
Yes.
So I don't love myself, and doing an activity that's meant to be filled with self-love doesn't help me. I must be really screwed. So yeah.
How do you get to self-love then, SB? What would be the first step to take?
I think everybody's steps are different, but the direction of the philosophy to move towards it, and I think it's ever evolving. I thought I achieved self-love a few years ago, and I thought, no, every year is a different level. At least I'm dealing with the conversation with myself now instead of how much do I hate myself.
Yeah.
You know, big progress. it's a big progress. Or how much can I hide? Or how much can I get away with showing of myself and not risk myself? That's a very different conversation. So how am I experiencing self-love? So one of the ways to approach it is to separate self-care from self-love.
Yeah.
We can do self-caring things if we love ourselves. We can do self-caring things if we don't love ourselves. I don't see the relationship between the two are necessarily a Venn diagram. They might be, they're probably not.
Yeah.
The other thing to be considering is how you treat yourself. So my favorite saying on this topic is, we need to treat ourselves as we wished our parents had when we were kids. So we need to speak with ourselves, be with ourselves, encourage ourselves, champion ourselves, nurture ourselves, support ourselves, demand of ourselves the way we wished it had been when we were younger.
Yeah. And
So example, if I had a view when I was a kid that was contrary to my dad's, not all the time, but enough of the time the message was driven home, I was wrong. Now, how did I want to be parented now I'm an adult? If I had a different view, I wanted it to be encouraged, I wanted it to be a conversation.
and acknowledged.
I wanted, to share a Diet Coke while we brainstormed it, and he would suggest a book. I have this whole ideal fantasy on how that could have been. I do that for me.
Wonderful.
I do that for me. That's a great example of it.
That's
That
such an
literally,
example.
That example is how I move towards self-love. That exact example.
Yeah. What would you share for someone who, because I know for me, and I know for a lot of people, we didn't grow up with great parents, and we didn't maybe not know what would great parenting look like.
Great point.
How would we don't? Because
if we don't know what we don't know,
how do we know?
we
We don't know. Because I think in some examples I can visualize, I can see how moments where I wish it could have been different.
Yeah.
I think in many moments though, I don't know what I would have wanted.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah,
So,
that's a really great point. So let's just start with a small thing.
yeah.
How do we talk to ourselves? What's our self-talk?
Yeah.
Just start there. Our self-talk is simply an echo of how our parents spoke with us.
Yeah.
That's it. Start there. I'm not going to do the whole bit.
Yes.
The book's on
You'll get all of this in the book.
Yeah.
So
values. Most people are not raised to be values aligned. They're raised to be reaction to big people aligned. So we're raised to be a reaction to what our big people want and prefer,
yes.
or want to steer us away from. Whereas great parenting and great adulting is to live true to and in alignment with a set of values.
Yeah.
So in the book I go through how to align yourself with great values.
Yeah, what are
I
some
think
of the
I
great
share my
values?
top 4 values that I had back
Yes.
then. I know love was there, and health and playfulness, and
Yes.
that's just kept me in really safe hands, my own hands, for a long time now, 16 years. I've added to it since then, but those core values are really wonderful. The other thing to know is most of us these are just general rules to answer your question. Most of us are raised that where your parents end and where you begin is completely blurred.
Yeah.
So if they have a view, that has to be your view. If they want you to feel a certain way, you can't feel the way you want to feel. They're the basics of it. If a parent has a view, we're meant to have that view. That is a boundary violation. And there are times when we need to be safe, when it's not. Like running onto the traffic, I don't care how much the kid wants to express themselves that way. I'm grabbing them any way I can.
Yes.
I'm getting them out of the traffic. Talk to me when you're an adult about the issues you've got about how I violated your boundaries. I'll pay for the therapy. But other than safety and preparedness for safety, reasonable safety, there has to be some risk to learn to grow. We have our own unique boundaries. Your boundary might finish here and mine might be here. That gap's that's healthy.
Yes.
We are raised generally to not know that healthy gap, that what we think can be differentiated from what our big people think, and what they think can be differentiated from what we think. What we think, feel, believe, expect, and perceive. So I was raised in a family with certain perceptions about wealth. Yes. And that was expected to be my belief. Wealthy people are evil. The only way you get wealthy is if you rip somebody off. Be intimidated of wealthy people. Get a good solid job, $50,000 a year, because at least it's stable and steady, and no one's going to rip you off. That's how I was raised. That was expected to be the way I thought. And when I broke away from that, it created a lot of angst in the family, because their boundaries and my boundaries were so blurred, it was like I was ripping the fabric of our tribe as I differentiated myself. I was going to differentiate myself. I always knew that was never going to be me, but they didn't know that.
Yeah, well, what a courageous step to take as well, to take that step away.
Life-affirming, self-loving.
Yeah.
Self-loving,
Yeah,
definitely.
like, that's definitely an act of self-love.
Yeah, way beyond
Probably the most
self-care.
powerful. Yeah.
Way beyond self-care. So they're the basic things you look at if you're not clear in your childhood. Where would I have liked it to have been different? Have a look at those. We can go into also the emotions you're allowed to have, the needs that were met, which is all covered in the book.
Yes.
But they're the basics to look at. Look at values alignment and misalignment, thoughts, feelings, perceptions, and expectations, and how they were meant to be taken on board by you.
Yeah.
And then ask yourself now, is that what I really think, feel, perceive, or expect of my world and myself? And where there's that difference, start ripping. And in the nicest way. And I don't mean you're upsetting people. There's no announcements to anybody. There's not grand emails, group emails to the family saying, I'm not taking that anymore. Within myself, I made the decision. I'm zigging, they want to zag. And I'll deal with what happens as it happens, but I'm not going to be in reaction to their reaction.
Yeah.
I'm going to be in response to my choice.
Yeah.
And that's the beginning of self-love. That's where healthy boundaries. The first step in healthy boundaries is to know you have them. The second step is to know they are not the same between two people. They can't be. And the third step to know is where your boundaries end and where mine end and your begin, and vice versa. There needs to be a healthy gap.
Yes.
The gap of ideas.
Yeah.
Because if they're the same, we don't need to. I don't need to think. You'll do all the thinking for me. How many relationships do we know?
Yes.
I don't need to feel for myself. My partner will do it for. It's crazy making. So that's the beginnings of self-love. Self-love is a journey to reclaiming our healthy boundaries. When we know that we end and where you begin is separate and definitive, and what you think isn't necessarily what I think, and what I feel isn't necessarily what you feel.
And that's okay.
When we know that is okay, we are beginning to become closer towards a relationship with ourselves that's healthy, that's loving. It takes a lot to do that.
Yeah.
It really does. I spent years when I was more your age, just not comprehending how somebody could have a different thought or a feeling. And if they did, they were wrong, because that's how I was raised.
Yeah.
Worse than that, they were against me. And they could never be in my life, because I never experienced, I had a healthy relationship with that gap where we could explore the ideas of the differences. It wasn't healthy for me, for you to be different to me.
Yeah.
And I needed you to know I was right about what I thought, because if I thought it, you had to think it. So my whole life in the 20s was just convincing people to be like I am or to hide their differences. It was very exhausting being in my space.
Yeah. And I think so many people do that now, that you can see that play out in really extreme ways, from like very personal ways.
All the way up to some politicians.
Yeah, all the way up to politics and social media and some of the cultures that's being created around that.
Some of our so-called leaders do not understand what a healthy boundary is, and nor do they care.
Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing. It's really interesting. Or the call-out culture, where we shame people publicly. That is a boundary violation.
Completely.
It's a complete violation. It's literally a demonstration of the lack of self-love in the person who's trying to shame someone.
Yeah.
So the way I'm thinking about it when I'm seeking my own boundaries, which is always a journey, how do I feel about that? What do I think about that? How do I expect that to be? What is my perception on that? The more I explore that, answer that, dive into that, get it wrong, try again, the more I know me.
Yeah.
The more I know me and what I stand for, what I believe in, what I care about, what I'll fight for, what I'll go with the flow on, the more confident people around me can be with me.
Yeah.
So people can trust me because I can trust me with all that information. That's not data that I'm waiting for you or someone else to tell me how to think, feel, expect, or perceive. I know. I know for me. I don't know for me, I know for me. So knowing for me is it's this way or else. I know it is. I'm open to
and
different.
And you can welcome people into that
the space. The gap that's so healthy.
Yeah.
But notice when you get around someone who doesn't have that shit figured out, and you can't be around them in a safe way. We don't share personal. If we are reasonably centered, we don't overshare with people who don't have that level of centered.
Yeah.
Or if we don't have our center and we're with someone who doesn't have the center, we'll overshare. You know who I mean? Like people who just, they're gonna, like literally they'll meet me, I'll say, hi, I'm Sharon, and they'll just like, emotional spillage all over me, just like I'm drenched in their emotionality. It's like, that's an example of unhealthy boundaries.
Yeah.
Or the person who thinks they can demand of me when they barely know me. Yeah, they'll just march up to me, you're Sharon Pearson, I need you, and they'll start lecturing me on what I need to know. That is, that's someone who hasn't figured out their boundaries yet.
Yeah.
They're not clear that where I end and they begin,
Yeah.
there's a gap.
There's a gap.
How about you find out about the gap?
Yeah.
I'd be really interested if you could find out about that gap.
Yes.
But they don't. They're just like, and I used to do that. I know this because this was my expertise. Just that's how I thought the world had to be. If I could get everyone sorted, I'd be okay. Another way of knowing is recognizing somebody who's way too emotionally shut down. They don't experience spontaneity. Spontaneity is an example of boundaries that are way too rigid. So that person was probably raised in an environment, generally, it could be either way, but generally speaking, boundaries are too rigid, everyone's shut down, there is a toxicity or rigidity that I always talk about. So there is a right way, there's a wrong way, you'll be judged, shamed, or shut down if you go wrong. And it's all done through innuendo. It's not really said. It's almost like, I call it the vanilla suburban middle class family. That kind of upbringing where it's buttoned down and conservative and don't you shame the family. Get in line. You don't think you're going out like that, do you? It's that kind of messaging. It's like it's all subtle, passive aggressive, but the points communicated.
Yeah.
I went to a lunch like that recently. I'm still talking about it 5 weeks later. 8 people all doing toxicity of shutdownness.
Wow.
8 people. And it's like, how? And this is how they live. One of them's in their 80s. This is how they live.
Yeah.
So it's the other extreme where the boundaries are so rigid.
So strong. Yeah.
There's no spontaneity. There's no breathing room. No one can breathe in that space freely and be themselves without it being frowned upon or suppressed or corrected. Always very helpful speeches on correction. And that environment is just as unhealthy because it looks like they've got boundaries in place and they're really clear where we'll begin and end, but they're not. It's actually, you better have it my way.
Yeah.
Or I'm not sure how welcome you're going to feel next time.
Yes.
It's comments like, that's what you're going to wear?
It's so powerful. It's, what I love about this is that it's, because of how powerful this is, it's grown to become so much more, this message what you're sharing.
Yeah.
So much more than just a book. You know,
Yeah, so much more than just love yourself.
Yeah, it's so much more than, take a bath. It's so much more than
yes.
what, Instagram and Pinterest sells us as this idea of what self-love is. There's a whole journey and a whole deep dive to be had.
Yes.
And
it can be done.
And it can be done.
Everything I've shared can be done. I dive into the chapter on boundaries in the book at this point and just really start unpacking where this is, I'm living this, and what parts of this can I reclaim. It's just a reclamation. There's nothing here that we can't do. We have at different stages when we were much younger did this before we started picking up on the messages from the big people. So it's in us. It's more just, let's nurture it until it comes alive again. And I just start going through the chapter and bringing it to life. The thing that's really fun to me though is noticing how I am different with people now and how they're different with me. And me spotting people who have an awareness of their boundaries and people who don't.
Yeah.
So a really simple example is narcissistic listening. So I might say to a friend, I'm doing Pilates. And their narcissistic listener, someone who's not clear on healthy boundaries, would say, yeah, I've heard that's really good, and change subject. Did I not say something? And that's an example of boundaries as being disregarded.
Yeah.
So they've decided that's the experience, so it's all the information they need.
Yep, and they're moving on with the next thing that they want to talk about.
That they want to talk about. My response to that these days is, now I'm going to give you my experience.
Yeah.
Because I'm practicing expressing self-love.
Yeah.
Someone who's feeling self-love and is centered isn't, there are polite conversations where I'm not doing it, but with someone I know reasonably well, I'm now going to tell you my experience of it. Not quite that loving. Pilates and I have a very mixed relationship right now. But that's a great example of it.
Yeah.
The playfulness you can bring and just see how people are being with you and where they want to tap into your experience because they appreciate how they feel about it won't be how you feel about it. Or what you think isn't what I think, or what you experience is not. I want to know about those differences.
Yeah.
That's loving listening.
Yeah.
Which needs to be another chapter.
Completely. And we'll do a whole interview and another video on that.
Narcissistic versus loving listening.
Yeah. Because what I love about that is when we trust ourselves to, to have those boundaries and to have a go at saying, well, hold on, here's my experience of it. A lot of the time, I think, some people will let us down.
Yes.
But the good ones, they'll surprise you with how much they want to.
That's how you know the good ones.
Yeah, it's how you know the good ones.
That's how you know the good ones.
Because how often do we just brush over something like that and and think, okay, well, I guess that's where the conversation's going now.
Yeah.
And we
I let it go.
Yeah, let it go.
I let it go.
Yeah.
It's not a battle to the mat every time, Glam. I'm not wrestling everyone to make them hear my view.
Yeah.
But enough times just
I'm
turning up present.
Yeah, it's worth giving yourself that gift and giving the other person the opportunity to step up. Because a lot of the time it's not that they don't want to do it, they just didn't know a better way.
I don't think most people know about loving listening.
Yeah.
I think most people are listening so they can share what they think.
Yeah.
I reckon that's what's going on.
Let's do a video on that.
Yeah. Loving listening versus narcissistic listening. Anyway.
Thank you so much, Sharon. This has been so much fun.
Thank you. That was awesome. Enjoy. I trust you got value from this podcast. We had so much fun and delighted in bringing it to you and for your loved ones. If you haven't yet, your subscription would be absolutely fantastic. Your subscription and your feedback means that we get to rate higher. If we get to rank higher, more people get to hear this message. You can also help out if you'd love to, once you subscribe, by sharing this podcast with someone who you believe this message may resonate with and create a discussion around it. Just enjoy it and interact with it however you choose, but most importantly, we'd love your subscription. See you at the next episode.